Is the recession we've all been waiting for finally here? Non-farm payrolls fell a little short at 143,000 versus 175,000 expected. Jobs numbers under the Biden administration were manipulated and recently revised down 600,000 jobs for 2024, which is the second largest negative revision since 2009 in the Great Financial Crisis. The lies that propped up the economy under the recent administration are finally starting to fall down. The U.S. market is a mess. Hiring is plummeting. The deficits are rising. And the U.S. just had its highest numbers of bankruptcies in December of last year since the Great Financial Crisis. Therefore, this means the economy should be in recession and collapse. Yes, if natural forces prevailed. But here's the thing. Donald Trump and the U.S. government won't allow that to happen. And that's not the world that we live in anymore. The big print we've been waiting for is finally here.
Risk of monetary debasement and the fact that there will be no do-over, I would just strongly encourage all of your listeners to have some allocation of their wealth into things that the government can't print. The government can't print gold, government can't print silver, government can't print Bitcoin, and the government can print dollars, and they're going to print a shitload of dollars, in my opinion.
Here's what we're breaking down today. Donald Trump, Scott Bessent, and Jerome Powell are all aligned, and they're coordinating more growth and interest rates to come down. And despite Doge's efforts of cutting billions of dollars per day in the government right now, the fiscal train might slow, but isn't stopping. And the world is desperately trying to find a new store of value. Gold is proving why it does not work as a modern store of value in the digital economy. We live in the matrix. What you think about the economy doesn't really matter.
And you recognize the brilliance of digital capital. And you recognize the fact that this is inevitably going to go from $1 trillion to 10 trillion to 20 trillion to 40 trillion to 80 trillion to 160 trillion. It's that nothing stops this train.
This is Dante Cook with Bitcoin Simply. Let's go.
Traditional safe haven assets are being replaced by Bitcoin. If you go and you talk to anyone under the age of 35 years old, they don't want gold. They want Bitcoin. I think that Bitcoin is always a buying opportunity if you got a long time horizon. And the way that I look at this is gold's kind of like a bicycle. Bitcoin's like a Ferrari, right? They both get you to where you want to go, but there's a whole different speed in Bitcoin compared to gold. And if you look over the past 3, 5, 10 years, Bitcoin has drastically outperformed every other asset. And the reason is because what you're watching is the world is trying to price this new digital decentralized currency. What is it worth? And as more and more pools of capital look at it and say, hey, this may be interesting, all of a sudden people realize, oh, it's not just for individuals. It's not just for public corporations. It's not just for financial institutions. This may be for countries. Well, what would that be worth? And so as those capital pools turn and start to add Bitcoin, all of a sudden that total addressable market grows, and then therefore a finite asset, more supply, or more demand coming in, obviously the price goes up. And so I think that Bitcoin eventually at some point in the future will be worth over $1 million a coin. It's the question is just how quickly will it get there?
More and more, the ultra rich are becoming bullish on Bitcoin.
You know, obviously the areas of digital currencies remain really exciting. We have some members who are all in. It's become a gold substitute. Gold isn't an inflation hedge. It's an instability hedge. There's a lot of instability around the world, and people think that in America they're concerned about it. But if you live in Argentina or Lebanon or any of countries that are under risk, Bitcoin is taking on a new role. So we have about 1 to 3% of 200 billion in assets, so about 6 billion in assets in digital currency. Gold is for traditionalists, and Bitcoin is a little new age, but they often play the same role. They're perceived as storehouses of value that are not subject to government fiat. When you get out of that, when you have a truly global market like that, people feel like there's some real refuge.
And it's because gold is just inefficient for today's modern world. Claims for gold continue to skyrocket, and the inefficiencies are starting to show in the market. When Dave Ramsden, the Bank of England governor, was asked about questions about the delays in being able to deliver gold from 1 to 2 days to 1 to 2 months in just a few short weeks. Here's what he had to say. Don't overlook this 90-second clip. This 90-second clip is highlighting why Bitcoin is becoming the new store of value in today's economy.
Yeah, there's been strong demand for delivery slots. We can meet that demand. All of our main counterparties, as it were, or better to say, all of those bodies who ship the gold have, they've all got the delivery slots they need over the next few weeks. If you were coming in new to us, you might have to wait a bit longer because all the existing slots are booked up. But this is a very orderly process. It is worth stressing compared to some of the markets we usually talk about. I mean, it's an obvious point, but gold is a physical asset, so there are real logistical constraints and security constraints. Getting into the bank for me this morning was a bit trickier because there was a lorry in the bullion yard. I mean, that's how it. But that's just the reality of it. It takes time, and the stuff is also quite heavy, as you know. So, I think these things sometimes get forgotten about in a headline that says, there's a 6-week delay or something like that. There's a lot of demand, but we've got slots for all the people who currently want to get their gold or want to ship gold on behalf of a customer, and we're managing it.
You contrast what's happening in gold with Bitcoin, where Bitcoin had 17,000 Bitcoin or $1.6 billion worth of Bitcoin removed from exchanges yesterday without a hiccup. No trucks lined up at the bank, just TikTok next block. And this is why longtime gold bug Larry Lepard, and author of The Big Print, changed his thesis from being just a gold bug to understanding digital gold, Bitcoin, and understanding the novel invention of digital scarcity.
When I talk about Bitcoin to people now, I try to really talk about this is like a fundamental technical innovation, and I define it as the fundamental technical innovation here is we created a system that provides digital scarcity. That never existed. Think of anything digital, a file. A digital file was replicable infinitely. Photos, papers, document, anything that was digital, you can make 1 million copies of it. And these guys, Satoshi, I think there were a bunch of Satoshis working together. They created a foolproof system, that has for 14 plus years, provided provable digital scarcity. And it turns out that scarcity is probably the most important quality of money, of sound money, as Safe has pointed out, in terms of stock to flow. And, the halving and all of the way they've asymptotically get to the 21 million is brilliant. And it never existed. And so now that exists, the world's different. And people need to take that into account. It's the same thing. I mean, when the Wright brothers flew, the world became different, and nobody could foresee that you would have a supersonic jet that would take you from New York to London in 3 hours. But that's where we ultimately went. There are going to be similar changes that are going to occur as a result of having digital scarcity.
One of the small changes that is happening because of this digital scarcity is that jurisdictions are fighting to buy Bitcoin and become the friendliest place for Bitcoiners to want to come and store their capital. Prime example, the Czech Republic president just signed into law that there will be no capital gains taxes on Bitcoin if held for more than 3 years.
Zero capital gains on Bitcoin. Welcome to Prague, the Bitcoin capital of Europe, where Parliament just passed incredible new laws for Bitcoiners.
A lot has changed. So let's recap the new legislation. First, Bitcoin is now taxed the same as stocks. So there is no capital gains tax if you hold it for at least 3 years. Second, local Bitcoin businesses have the right to a bank account. Banks can no longer discriminate against them by closing their accounts for no reason. Lastly, there is legal clarity on MiCA regulation, which is a new vast EU-wide crypto regulation. And then there is the Bitcoin capital itself, the home to many key Bitcoin inventions. The world's first mining pools, the world's first hardware wallet, both Stratum mining protocols, the world's leading Bitcoin ATM producer, Bitcoin-backed lending platform, the biggest merchant adoption in the world, and much more.
Prague's future looks bright, so my mission now takes me to the US, where I'll be working on a documentary to showcase the value of Bitcoin mining. So follow me not to miss it. Cheers.
You don't think that this is going to attract capital to the Czech Republic? Another big change is that companies will change and alter their entire name and business model to focus on Bitcoin alone. Like MicroStrategy going from MicroStrategy to just Strategy. Bitcoin is the only strategy. And this is attracting more people to invest in MicroStrategy. Like the largest asset manager in the world, BlackRock, just announcing yesterday that they own a 5% stake in MicroStrategy, or strategy. Mind you, this was a company that no one cared about 4 years ago. All of the capital of the world is rushing to buy Bitcoin, and there's less and less Bitcoin being available to be purchased day after day. And people who have already purchased their Bitcoin don't want to sell their Bitcoin. And one of the ways that they can unlock liquidity in their Bitcoin without selling their Bitcoin is Ledn, the leader in digital lending since 2018. They've made $6.5 billion worth of loans to tens of thousands of customers who wanted a safe, simple, and secure way to unlock liquidity in their digital assets without selling it. Go to ledn.io/borrowing in order to fill out your application today, which should take just 2 minutes, and you can have liquidity in your local currency in your bank account in less than 24 hours. That's ledn.io/borrowing, the leaders in Bitcoin-backed lending. Some of the biggest news in finance just got dropped quietly yesterday. The SEC appears to be opening up the opportunity for people that own IBIT to receive their Bitcoin or their ETF, their wrapped coin, in kind by allowing in-kind redemptions. But here's the problem. There's a gap between what's technically possible and making this thing a reality in the real world. As someone who's worked at a Bitcoin exchange, I know that it's much more difficult than just being able to withdraw your Bitcoin. Creating a UI to withdraw the Bitcoin. Creating the different systems, protocols, and processes to allow people to securely do this is a lot harder than it looks on the surface. So just because it will be possible to receive in-kind redemptions doesn't mean that you'll be getting your IBIT token turned into real Bitcoin anytime soon. And I wouldn't bet on the firms who historically haven't owned the things that they said they do to actually have the Bitcoin that's backing the Bitcoin ETFs. But I don't want to put any conspiracy theories out there. You don't even have to take the chance. Just buy actual Bitcoin and withdraw it from an exchange. And that's what the Bitcoin way will help you do. Members of their team will walk you through 100% self-custody to enable you to remove all counterparty risk and remove your private keys from exchanges. You'll be able to verify that what you actually own is actually Bitcoin. Go to thebitcoinway.com/simplybitcoin to schedule a free 30-minute consultation with their team. That's thebitcoinway.com/simplybitcoin to schedule a free 30-minute consultation with their team. Back to the show. Here's a couple clips that indicate to me that a coordinated print might be coming. The signs are subtle, but I believe that they're important if you pay close attention. In an interview a few nights ago, Donald Trump hinted that Powell was doing the right thing by keeping rates at where they were.
Fed Chair Jerome Powell, the Fed meeting was this week. He held the rates. He didn't cut them.
No, I'm not surprised. I think holding the rates at this point was the right thing to do.
In an interview with Scott Bessent yesterday, when he was asked about his meeting with Jerome Powell, he said that he's sure that Jerome Powell will do the right thing when it comes to interest rates.
I want to ask you if you have had your traditional weekly meeting with Fed Chair Powell yet.
We did. I did an away game over at the Fed. We had a very nice breakfast. Chair Powell and I don't know each other well, so it was very constructive. How do you view that relationship evolving? The two agencies and buildings are supposed to work very closely together, and you've had some criticism in the past of his work. And as I said at my hearing, everything I'm going to talk about is things the Fed's done in the past. Prospectively, monetary policy, I will not comment on, and I'm sure he's going to do the right thing, so there'll be no criticism.
He also outlined a playbook for lowering the 10-year rates, which is the number one driver for the price of money globally.
One of the things I wanted to emphasize is that we are not focused on whether the Fed is going to cut, not cut. What we are focused on is lowering rates. So we are less focused on the specific of rate cuts and how do we get the whole curve down. I mentioned that the 10-year, I believe, is the important price to focus on. It's mortgages, it's long-term capital formation. So, and look, I think with the president's policies of energy dominance, deregulation, and non-inflationary growth, I think that the 10-year is going to naturally come down.
He's telling you exactly what's going to happen. And what he's projecting is that the 10-year yield is going to come down in a big way. With Powell aligned with this seems like global liquidity is just around the corner. So, in my estimation, it doesn't really matter if the economy actually looks like the NBER is going to say that we've been in a recession for the last 18 months. And here's why. The next big print is happening.
The next big print is going to come when something breaks, maybe the bond market, maybe the stock market, whatever it is, and the government realizes that they've got to, or else everything's going to collapse. That's coming. Outside data on that is 18 months. Inside data on that's tomorrow. Medium date on that, 6 months maybe, 6 to 9 months. I think when that occurs, Bitcoin will go and exceed the power law. We'll get a 2 standard deviation move above, and we'll pump to 300, 350.
There's perfect alignment for the next Bitcoin bull run to begin. Trump, Powell, and Bessent are in alignment. Lower rates, do the right thing. Gold is not the store of value that it used to be. And the paper gold market is starting to rear its ugly head when people want physical gold in their own coffers. And Bitcoin is the culmination of digital scarcity. It's the great absorber of liquidity, and liquidity appears to be around the corner. Team, the game plan is pretty simple. If you're enjoying the content on this show, share, like, and subscribe. And if you want to come to the Bitcoin event of the year, come down with me and hundreds of other Bitcoiners from all across the world at the longest running U.S. Bitcoin event at BitBlockBoom in Dallas, Texas from April 3rd through April 6th. Hear from some of your favorite speakers in Bitcoin like Parker Lewis, Marty Bent, Guy Swan, Bob Burnett, and me. Also, you'll get a chance to learn the basics about Bitcoin, like how do I buy Bitcoin? How do I remove it from an exchange? How do I do mining at home and hopefully win a block, like some of these solo miners that we've seen recently? And you'll get a chance to hang out with Bitcoiners in real life. Get $100 off your all-inclusive ticket by going to bitblockboom.com and entering the promo code BBB25. That's BBB25 for $100 off your all-inclusive ticket. I can't wait to meet you guys there. This is Dante Cook with Bitcoin Simply. Happy stacking.